Hello guys, this is me Simo Orohara, and today I'm gonna talk about one of the biggest plot twists in Bleach. The truth of Zangetsu and also the true power of Ichigo Kurosaki. And personally, I think this plot twist is one of the best things that Kobo ever made, because it shows you how Kobo was planning for Ichigo's power for a long time, and also it explains the power of Ichigo and how it works, and also it explains the fights of Ichigo, why did he won in that fight in that way. And also it tells you that Kobo is genius and he had the skills to write something very good if he wants. However, it makes me feel sad that after we get to know the true power of Ichigo and how he is powerful, we didn't have the chance to see this power in the final arc in a good way. And this is why I'm gonna speak about the plot twist of Zangetsu from the beginning, like if we are going to discover it for the first time. And also I'm going to give you my thoughts about the final form of Ichigo. So I'll split the story of this plot twist into two parts. The first part is from the beginning of the story until the chapter 522, and the second part is what comes after that chapter. So, in the first part of the story, we only had general informations about the Shinigami and the Zanpakuto. For example, the Zanpakuto is a reflection of the power and the soul of the Shinigami, and to activate your Zanpakuto you need at least to know your Zanpakuto name, and more than that, you must have a good contact with your Zanpakuto. The more well connected you are with your Zanpakuto, the more you benefit from it, especially when the Shinigami wants to achieve the Bankai or to use new techniques. They must reach a high levels in their relationship with their Zanpakuto in terms of communication and deep understanding their Zanpakuto, beside the training of course. And we have seen almost all of that with Ichigo, but with a different way. When Quincy was training Ichigo to awaken his Shinigami powers, Quincy has got the face chain of Ichigo in order to make him turn into a Shinigami, otherwise he will become a hollow. At that moment, in the inner world of Ichigo, we had for the first time the chance to see the Osan, the old man. Anyway, the Osan told Ichigo that he must search and find his Shinigami power inside one of those boxes. And in the same time, the body of Ichigo was in a situation that made Ororo and Jinta think probably Ichigo couldn't make it and he will turn into a hollow. But fortunately Ichigo found the box that contained his Zanpakuto. But the weird thing here, Ichigo was in a form of Shinigami with the Shihakusho clothes, but his face was covered by a mask of hollow. Anyway, we will talk about this point soon. The important here is when Ichigo awakened his Shinigami power and got his Zanpakuto, he thought the old man that he saw in his inner world is his Zanpakuto. And the words of the old man were going on the same roads of Ichigo's thinking. But that wasn't enough for Ichigo yet to use his Zanpakuto in a good way. As we said, the Shinigami needs at least to know the name of his Zanpakuto in order to benefit from its power. And that was the last lesson of Quincy for Ichigo. And the old man showed again himself to Ichigo. He told him that he needs to call him by his name. And in that moment where Ichigo and not the old man said Zangetsu. And after that we saw for the first time the Shikai of Ichigo Zangetsu. And because Ichigo, as I said already, was thinking that the old man is his Zanpakuto, he was sure now, but that's not enough. Because in his fight against Zaraki, Ichigo found himself against an opponent that is much stronger to fight him, and you know only the name of your Zanpakuto. Ichigo needs more contact with his Zanpakuto. He needs to know his Zanpakuto closely. But the weird thing here, when Ichigo came back to his inner world, Ichigo didn't fight the old man, and Ichigo didn't make a contact with the old man. Instead of that, Ichigo fought Shirosaki, or the White Hollow. And that was the first time we have seen the Hollow of Ichigo. And what is more weird here is the Hollow Ichigo was perfectly using Zangetsu, and he was dressing like Ichigo. For me, at that time, and since we didn't know the real background of Ichigo, I considered the White Hollow just a side effect of the transformation process that Ichigo took during the last training with Quincy. In any case, Ichigo or us the fans at that time, we couldn't have any doubt about the old man. We just thought the White Hollow is something that Ichigo couldn't control, and that was clear in Ichigo's fight against Byakuya, when Shirosaki took his first action by attacking Byakuya. And here again, Shirosaki used the Bankai in a perfect way, to the point where he used for the first time the Getsuga Tensho in the Bankai mode, before Ichigo himself. And this is why in the beginning of the Arankara arc, when Shirosaki started taking control over the old man Zangetsu, Ichigo found himself that he must control that brutal power. And as you know, he went to the visor to learn how to control his hollow transformation power. And here we arrive to one of the focal points of this topic. From the chapter 218 to the chapter 221, we all have seen that awesome fight that happened between Ichigo and Shirosaki, and we all were impressed by how Shirosaki wasn't a meaningless creature, the way he was speaking and he had philosophy and something to say, the king and the horse, etc. It made him more shining and special than the old man Zangetsu for a lot of fans, and I think for that reason we ignored one of the biggest hidden truths that Kubo put in that fight. Actually, it was one sentence that Shirosaki repeated over and over in that fight and we ignore it. I'm talking here about Ichigo when he entered his inner world and he was looking for the old man Zangetsu, his Zanpakuto, his Shinigami power, but he found just Shirosaki, and here Ichigo asked him, "Where is the old man Zangetsu?" Shirosaki replied, "I'm Zangetsu," and Ichigo asked him again, "What did you do with Zangetsu?" and Shirosaki replied, "Don't me say it again, I'm Zangetsu." At that time I thought Shirosaki just wanted to distract Ichigo, and as I said, I thought Shirosaki was just a pure hollow power, no more no less. But in general, the only thing that was like a constant equation in Ichigo's fight is whenever Shirosaki has the chance to take control, Ichigo become much powerful and stronger, and we saw that clearly in Ichigo's fight against Ilkyura. At that time Shirosaki had completely controlled Ichigo's body, which gave us that result, and before that and during all those events that came after Ichigo's fight against Zaraki, we didn't witness the appearance of the old man Zangetsu anymore, and we get to see Zangetsu again in the chapters where Ichigo wanted to learn the final Getsuga Tensho technique, and he was with Shirosaki, but Zangetsu, the old man, at that time was in his young form as Tensa Zangetsu. And the noticeable here is Tensa Zangetsu and Shirosaki both said to Ichigo the same thing. Shirosaki in his fight against Ichigo said to Ichigo that he is with the old man, that they are both his source power, and Tensa Zangetsu said the same thing. But no one of them has determined in a frankly way what power each one of them represents. They just said, "We are both your source power," and based on what we have seen, we determined that the Tensa Zangetsu or Zangetsu represents the Shinigami power and Shirosaki the hollow power, and later in the arc of Ginju we knew that Ichigo also has the Fullbring power. And now that was almost the whole story of Ichigo with his Zanpakuto in the first part of the story. And as I said in the beginning of this video, Ichigo learned how to use his Zanpakuto based on the known basics. Learn your Zanpakuto names and have a powerful relationship with your Zanpakuto. But since the appearance of Nimaya Uitsu, the Zero Squad member and the maker of the Zanpakuto, a lot of things have changed our perception about the Zanpakuto. And here we move to the second part. With Nimaya we have known that in the general situation any Shinigami can't have a Zanpakuto without Nimaya. How? Simply, if you become a Shinigami and you went to the Academy of the Shinigami in order to own your Zanpakuto, you will need first a certain sword named the Asauchi, and this Asauchi is a nameless Zanpakuto. It doesn't have any name, it's like a raw material. So they will give you the Asauchi, and what you will have to do next is to keep training on your Asauchi and try to reflect the essence of your soul into that Asauchi, and as a result, your own Zanpakuto will be manifested inside that Asauchi. That's the process, and this is why every Shinigami can't have a Zanpakuto without getting an Asauchi, and the one who made the Asauchi is Nimaya Uitsu. And at that time, a shocking question arose. If that's so, then how did Ichigo get his Asauchi? Ichigo didn't go to the Academy of the Shinigami, and he never had any contact with Nimaya before. The answer of that question, we have discovered it in the flashback of Everything But the Rain. In that flashback, we saw that Aizen was still doing his experiments about the holofication, and one of his experiments was a holo creature that was created from the souls of the Shinigami, and they named it Shiro or White. So Shiro was a combination of holo as a form and Shinigami as a soul, and as we saw during the fight that happened between Isshin and Shiro, Masaki entered into the battle, and as a result Shiro attacked her by biting her shoulder, and through that bite Shiro inserted into her soul, and by default he moved to Ichigo when he was born. So what is the link between this story and the Asauchi? The link here is the holo Shiro itself. Because as Nimaya said, Shiro in a similar way was made by the same formula of the Asauchi that Nimaya makes. In other words, Shiro was like an Asauchi, so when it moved to Ichigo's soul, it was merged with his Shinigami power and it became his Zanpakuto, because as we said, to have a Zanpakuto you need first an Asauchi, which means that the Zanpakuto and the one who represents his Shinigami power is Shirosaki. And this dude all the time was lying about his true identity. In fact, the old man was the Quincy power of Ichigo. Since his mother Masaki was a Quincy, he also has the Quincy power. And this Quincy power was represented as a form of the founder of the Quincy, who is Yuhabach. But just as a form, as a personality, the Osan has his own personality. And because the old man is actually a Quincy power, he didn't want Ichigo to be a Shinigami. And the reason why the old man said it's because Ichigo will just find the pain and the sufferance in the path of the Shinigami. And eventually the old man will end up killing Ichigo. And I don't know exactly if he meant that the real Yuhabach is the one who's gonna kill Ichigo or the old man himself. In any case, the important here is in an effort to prevent Ichigo from becoming a Shinigami, the Osan was always trying to be his main source of power. But at the times when Ichigo's life was in a mortal danger, there, the power of the Shinigami, which is the power of Shirosaki, came to the surface and made the difference. In other words, Ichigo all the time was fighting using just a small part of his true power. And this true power, we had seen some of its sparks in the previous Ichigo's fight against Zaraki and against Byakuya and against Ilkyura. And this, guys, as I said in the beginning of this video, explain everything about Ichigo's fight and power. Ichigo's situation, in my opinion, is like Zaraki's situation. These two were very strong from the beginning. For example, for Zaraki, when he fought Yachiro Unohana for the first time, by default he suppressed his power to enjoy the fights, and that caused him in the end to fight with a minimum of his true power for the rest of the story. And in the situation of Ichigo, the old man was the one who was suppressing the true power of Ichigo. So Kobo, as I said, was planning for this from the start of the story, and by revealing those facts, the true identity of the old man and the true power of Ichigo, Kobo has connected all the things together and he revealed the true power of Ichigo. And here we arrive to the big problem of Ichigo and the final arc. Alright, Kobo did a great job explaining the power of Ichigo, at least for me, and as a result, we had to see Ichigo's true power in action. But unfortunately, that was the thing that we didn't see. Because when you see the path of Ichigo after his power was revealed, He didn't get any proper fight. Just compare Ichigo's road to beat Aizen with Ichigo's road to beat Yhwach, knowing that Yhwach is much stronger than Aizen Sasuke. In order to defeat Aizen, Ichigo took a lot of fights and he learned one of the strongest abilities in Bleach, the final Getsuga Tensho. So in the final arc, after we knew the true power of Ichigo, Ichigo at least should have fought a strong generator, so we can get to know the level of his true power with his new techniques. You may tell me, but Ichigo fought Candice. Do you consider that short clash a fight? I don't think so. It was just a warm-up for Ichigo to let us see his new Getsuga Tensho, and he didn't fight her seriously. And also the fight against Yhwach happened when the manga entered the rush zone, and that was clear for everyone, at least for me, that the final fight of Ichigo with Yhwach wasn't supposed to be like that. I think Ichigo should have taken another training with both Zangetsu and the old man, because in my opinion what happened between Ichigo and Nemaya was just the beginning for Ichigo to discover his true power. In my opinion, Ichigo needed a special training with the old man to know more about the Quincy secrets that he could use against Yhwach, alongside with training with Shirosaki, and in the end we would see the final form of Ichigo that combines between all the powers of Ichigo. Maybe it could be like this form of Ichigo in Bleach Brave Souls, something similar to it. And by the way, the design was supervised by Kubo himself. I'm not saying it should be like that, but something close to it, where Ichigo can use both his Quincy and Shinigami power. So that's the end of my video, guys. What do you think? Do you think that if the anime returns, Kubo can fix this problem and we would see a rewriting of the final battle of the manga? Tell me about that in the comments, and see you guys in my next video.